Hey guys, man, I love that song. Doug, I'm gonna write those words down for you, Doug. And I always tell you the same thing. We're gonna write the words. This is a song like I did it my way, like Frank Sinatra, and that's basically what the song is about. A mi modo, I did it my way, and it talks about your life. You fall in love, you don't fall in love. Your parents, they're worth more than anything on earth, and all the gold on earth. It's a beautiful song, man. Beautiful song. But guys, before we get started, let's give a big welcome, man. We got our San Diego PD gang legend, Detective Chris Kilby. Let's go, Big Roger. He's excited. We got our sister all the way from Riverside, man. Ceci Escano. Saludos, everyone. I know you're drinking ice water today, Ceci, because I hear that you guys have a big hot spell going on over there. But guys, we're excited. Roger, we're going to be introducing you right now. But before we do, let's do what we always do. And Bobby, we'll start off with you. What are you drinking? What are you smoking, brother?
Doing my go-to Lalo tequila. It's chilled. I had to run over and grab it. I had it in the refrigerator. And Lalo is, like I mentioned before, it's a grandson of Don Julio from the Don Julio brand of tequila. It's really good. I think it's better than Don Julio got bought out by some big company. I don't think it's the same anymore. This is still the original family. And I'm smoking a Guy Ferretti knuckle sandwich.
Oh, those are good. Those are good cigars.
From Espinosa Cigar. It's kind of like a spicy. I love this cigar. It has like and I'm drinking it also with my treat. I always have coffee as well. Some black coffee. So it's a peppery coffee bean taste. Love these smokes.
I'll tell you, Bobby, as I get older, I can't smoke a cigar right now. I mean, I got this little fake one because I'm a mandilon. My wife won't let me smoke in my house. But I'll tell you, past 5 o'clock, if I smoke one, I'll be awake till 2 o'clock in the morning for whatever reason. That and coffee. I can't have coffee after 3 o'clock. I'll be wide awake, you know. But man, thank God that you could still enjoy both great pleasures, coffee, which I love, and a great cigar. But tequila, most definitely. Go ahead.
The tequila will help counterbalance. So like the coffee and cigar will get me up here, and then the tequila, the second shot, because these are kind of big shots, will tranquilar. It'll make me calm down.
It'll chill you out, most definitely. Yeah. Big Doug, I know you're not at home. You're in Canada, no, Newark.
I'm in Newark, New Jersey right now, waiting to go up to Nova Scotia.
So tell us, why are you going into Nova Scotia, and tell us what you're drinking, brother.
Well, I'm heading up to Nova Scotia. I think I shared earlier that my mom passed away a while back, and our family immigrated from Northern England and Scotland area through Nova Scotia to the States, and they have a farm up there. So we're going to spread my mom's ashes up in Nova Scotia in the next couple of weeks. But so I didn't have a chance to go out and get anything really good to drink. So tonight I'm just having a Voodoo Ranger by New Belgium, an IPA beer. So that'll have to do me for tonight. And next week I'll have something good for you from Canada.
Oh, I can't wait, man. Can't wait to hear. And Big Roger, what are you drinking, brother?
All right. So first of all, I'm having a really hard time hearing you guys. Just so you know, it's really, really low volume on my end for some reason. And David, when you talk, I get a crackling. But anyway, I'm drinking Maker's Mark. It's my go-to drink all the time, but that's not what's special about it. You know, I started thinking about Doug and Bobby all the time on the show, and they always have these wild stories to telling me about where they got their alcohol and everything else. So I said, you know what? What do I got that I can try to top these two guys? So I broke out some special minor agua. It comes from El Paso, Texas, and you can see that it doesn't have a lot of bubbles in it. It's a sparkling water, but you know what? From El Paso, Texas, it's what's making my drink tonight. So, salud, guys.
Salud.
Salud. All the way from Pachuco, exactly, man. That's great. That's great, Roger. Yeah, well, guys, I'm drinking something special. One of my neighbors, during the hurricane, I helped him, and he gave me a bottle. He was grateful that I went to his yard and helped him clean his yard, do whatever we had to do. And he gave me this bottle. It's called Sotol. It's Desert Door. It's like a mezcal, but it's not made out of the mezcal plant. It's actually made by the Indians in Chihuahua in the desert. I think, Bobby, you know a little bit more about it. And so I'm drinking this today because, like I said, it was a gift. And with that said, guys, salud to our drink tonight. It tastes it tastes like tequila. It tastes like mezcal, but it has like a sweet honey taste to it. But yeah, great drink, guys. Let's get started. Roger, we're excited to have you on the show, and I know you talked about the Sandy Vinge case on the Gray Line, but a lot of people really enjoyed that story. So we're going to start off with that, and Doug will start that off. But before we do, let me just tell some people that are watching us a little bit about you. You did over 28 years with the San Diego Sheriffs, and I believe you did 10 months or so with Coronado Police Department. But even before that, when you were 15 years old or 14 years old, you were a police explorer with the National City Police Department. And those of you that do not know the National City Police Department, back in 1975, these guys kicked ass. I'm telling you, Bobby, National City PD, you look it up, back in 75, these guys basically took no prisoners. These guys, I mean, the guys that, and with all due respect, I say this with National City, no disrespect, one of my best friends, Manny Rodriguez, was the chief of police there, retired, I believe, 3 years ago. These guys that we would fire from San Diego PD, guys that Chula Vista PD would fire, guess where they would go? They would go straight to National City. Guys that the sheriffs would fire would go. Am I right, Doug?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. I mean, they went straight to National City. But back in 1975, Roger, as a kid, was probably involved in more fights than cops with 10, 15 years careers. Right, Roger? As a 15-year-old kid.
Pretty much. I mean, National City and those officers there, they were all my mentors, and they taught me a lot. I mean, I could sit here and tell you war stories all day long about National City as an explorer. It was absolutely the most. It was an E-ride ticket in 1975 for a 15-year-old kid. Absolutely.
And you know what? Not only that, Roger, but there were some great cops working there. Yeah, there were some guys that were heavy-handed, but you know what? There was guys there, man, that, you know what? If I was basically hanging from a cliff and somebody had to hold onto the rope, I'd say you hold it, because I know those guys had a lot of heart and they were good dudes.
There was a lot of good dudes. Hey, you know, Michael McMullen, he's the officer that shot Hector Ayala. He was from National City PD.
Yes.
When Hector got shot in the neck, and he reached in, even though he was a dirtbag, he reached in and pinched off the carotid artery of Hector and saved Hector's life. So I told you, there's good guys there. They just didn't let it bleed out.
So Roger started his career like all of us on patrol. And then he became a detective. And and someday we'll bring him back, because I want him to talk about, he was one of the first detectives from a municipal county police agency assigned to VCTF, the Violent Crimes Task Force. On this task force, these guys worked Mexican Mafia, Nuestra Familia, Aryan Brotherhood, Black Guerrilla Family. They worked skinheads. They worked the Klan. I mean, these guys bought grenades, bought machine guns. These guys went deep undercover, and Roger was one of the first ones. One of these days, we'll bring you back, Roger, so you could tell us about all those experiences. But from right there, he went back to patrol, and that's where Doug is going to come on. And Doug, it's all yours, brother.
Well, the first thing I'm going to ask Roger is, when did you have time to be Steven Seagal's stunt double?
When did I have what, Doug? I'm sorry.
When did you have time to be Steven Seagal's stunt double?
You know what? When I used to go out to the bars and drink, everybody would always say, "You know what? You look like Steven Seagal." And I said, "Okay, whatever. I don't have any Steven Seagal's women."
Anyway, so when you ended up going back patrol, there was a case that came out. I believe it was started in La Mesa, where an elderly woman by the name of Sandy Vinge was kidnapped from her home, brutally beaten and dragged around for, I don't know, I think it was over 24 hours in the trunk of her car by a couple of knuckleheads in it. And how is it that you got involved in that case, and what was exactly the outcome of that?
So Sandy was a 76-year-old lady that lived in the unincorporated part of La Mesa, which was handled by the sheriffs. It was handled out of our Lemon Grove station. I was working at Santee at the time, and I got off at 2:00 in the morning, but about 12, and I was at the station just doing what I do at 12 o'clock at night, unloading my car and getting ready to go home, doing some paperwork. And one of the deputies, Mark Snelling, puts out, he's in a failure to yield, and So, failure to yield, we're all jumping back in our cars and we're going. So and this was in the unincorporated part of El Cajon. So I was probably 6 minutes out from the Santee station to the unincorporated part of El Cajon. So I haul butt over there. And when I get there, Mark's saying there's somebody in the car. And we open the hood, the trunk of the car, and here's this lady, Sandy, this beautiful lady, Sandy, tied up, and you could just see she had such a relief on her face finally. It was sad to see. So I was assigned to go to the hospital with her because we knew she was in critical condition. We weren't sure if she was going to survive because these monsters or animals, whatever you want to call them, they had beat the living crap out of this lady. She had black and blue marks on her, and she'd been held for 26 hours in the trunk of that car. There's a picture of her right there. You can see the black and blue. She'd already had black and bluing on her face, on her arms. They beat her every time she asked for food. She asked for water. They beat her. In this car, they had a shovel. They were going to take her to the desert, kill her, and bury her in the desert, so she would never be found. The suspects, the way the suspects contacted her was one of the male suspects, Luis Osborne. He went to the house to sell Sandy a vacuum cleaner. He worked for Kirby Vacuum or one of those vacuum. No offense, Chris. Worked for one of those vacuum places. And so Sandy at the time, she didn't buy it immediately, but she ended up buying this vacuum from this kid. Well, a couple of days later, this kid goes back to the house and he says, "Hey, I just had a fight with my girlfriend. Can I use your phone?" Well, Sandy being Sandy, she lets the kid in the house. Well, that's when it went downhill. The kid had another friend with him, and that's when they kidnapped her. They ransacked her house. They tied her up. They put her in her car. That was her car that she kept parked in the garage with her. She had special rims on it. She was so proud of those rims. Her son bought those rims for her, so she thought she was the hot rod mama. So she was left in the car. They ransacked. They put the stuff in the car. I'm not really sure at what point they picked up the girlfriend. The girlfriend could have been with them at this time, but I can't say. So there was three original suspects. It was Luis Osborne and Jeffrey. I can't think of his name right now. Lewis, I think it was, or something like that. So anyhow, 24 hours they visited ATMs. They would make her withdraw money. They would beat her. They would punch her in the stomach. They'd smack her in the face. They'd smack her in the head. So Mark makes a traffic stop finally. He gets the car stopped, and that's when she was rescued.
And Roger, he didn't know that these guys were suspect. He didn't know that. Did he know by then that the car was stolen? Actually, he didn't because nobody reported it, right?
No, it wasn't. It wasn't a reported stolen because she was the victim and she was tied up in the car.
Yeah.
What was the PC for the stop? Do you know?
They wrote at midnight. They wrote a stop sign in front of him.
What a miracle! Huh?
And this was like I don't know. I think if I remember correctly, it was like a kind of a cold, rainy night. I could be wrong, and it was like me. I was thinking, wow, would I made the stop on a slow roller through a stop sign at midnight? I don't know. I don't know if I would have did it, but Mark did it. There was something that put him in that position, some other stronger force that said stop. And Mark was a good cop, so he probably would have did it anyway. He stopped that car and saved he's the one that originally saved Sandy's life, to tell you the truth.
Did the suspects wrap it when they made the?
They did. The suspects did wrap it from the car, and
all three of them.
Yes. So Mark was able to take the female into custody, I believe, immediately. The two males ran. The car stopped in front of one of the suspects, and I believe it was Luis Osborne's house. They stopped in front of. So Luis bailed into the house, and we were able to take him into custody there. And then they caught the other kid a short time later. Well, I was at the hospital when they caught the second kid.
Wow. So was it going to be a robbery that went bad?
I can't hear you, Doug. I'm sorry.
Was it a robbery that was going bad at the house? Is that why they took her?
Was it a robbery that was gone bad?
Yeah.
No. I think their intentions were all along was to kidnap her and take her to ATMs, banks, and do withdrawals as much as they could. But they didn't. They weren't that smart. They didn't realize that she could only get $300-400 at a time out of her ATM every 24 hours. So after they got the first $300, they couldn't get no more. They were stuck with her.
Wow.
So that's when they picked up the shovel and they decided they would go get some more money, and then they would drive her to the desert to kill her and bury her. So
the deputy Mark that made the traffic stop, was he working your watch and on his way back into the station, or was he working graveyards?
No, he was working graveyards. So I worked what we called overlap. I would go in at 2:00 in the afternoon and I'd get off at 2:30 in the morning. Mark would go in at 6:00 at night and get off at 6:30 in the morning. So I was the overlap relief. I was the, like the PD has, you have your units that come in and those other units stay out in the field so they can get briefing and the other guys can go home. So that's basically what I did in patrol at the time.
Okay.
So then I was assigned at the hospital. So I stayed with Sandy at the hospital for about 8 to 10 hours. And she was just, she reminded me of my grandmother. She reminded me of your grandmother. She was just a little old lady that was minding her own business, not a care in the world. And these monsters did that to her. Look at her face over there, man. And when I was in the back of the ambulance, they caused her to defecate on herself. They made her pee on herself. And when I was in the back of the ambulance, man, I was thinking how terrible it smelled. But at the same time, I was relieved that she was fighting. She was still alive. During the ordeal, she was praying to God to take her. She didn't want to live like this no more. She wanted to die. And she was telling me the story. I was praying to God. She called us angels. She called us saints. We came along at the right time. But every time now to this day, when I go into a convalescent hospital or hospital, I smell Sandy. I smell that urine smell. I smell that feces smell. It's something that will never ever escape my thoughts.
Wow. Now, when I was reading through the case, Roger, there was a point where she thought that maybe another officer had made a stop earlier in the ordeal, and didn't hear her knocking in the back or trying to get her attention. Was anybody able to verify that?
Not to my knowledge. Actually, Doug, that's the first time I heard that. So, to my knowledge, no, I never heard that story, and I don't know.
Okay.
So yeah. I sat through all the prelim. I testified in the prelim, and people said I cried during the prelim. I care less if I cried during the prelim. It's no big deal to me. I cried more than once in my lifetime, especially on the job. If I did, I did. But this lady touched me. This lady touched a lot of people's lives afterwards. A lot of people. And we all stayed in contact with her. And she died in I think it was 2017. She died of cancer.
Roger, throughout our career, all four of us, throughout our career, we've responded to calls. We've fell into calls not like this, or probably worse, or just as bad. And you have the suspect in front of you. How hard was it for the deputies, for the officers, after seeing, you look at the picture where the DA is showing her bloody face and you're there, she's in that ambulance with you. How hard was it to refrain yourself or the deputies from beating the shit out of these guys? How hard was it?
So I was fortunate. I didn't have to deal with the suspects. We packaged Sandy up in an ambulance and got her out of there as fast as we could, because like I said, we thought she was going to pass away on us. So I didn't have any dealing with the suspects. So, my emotions were really bad. The other deputies really didn't get to spend much time with Sandy to see how bad she was. So I don't really think, I know they knew that she was bad, but I don't really think it ever set in. They didn't really know what happened, how she was treated over those 26 hours. I mean, this all came from me afterwards and the detective when they came to the hospital. So the patrol officers, patrol deputies, they never really got the information about how bad she was. So this was probably honestly a lot easier case to stomach at the scene than it would have been.
Yeah.
Bobby, did you want to say something? Go ahead, Bobby.
Yeah, we're talking about our careers. When I was in Haiti, I ran an anti-kidnapping team. One of the cases we worked was a kidnapping for ransom. The kidnappers would attack a house, a home invasion, ransacked the house. It was a takedown on robbery inside the home, take a vulnerable victim. In one case, they took like a 82, 83-year-old grandma. And over 3 days during negotiations to get her released, the money drop was made. They released her. They had beaten her, similar to this. They tried to rape her. They couldn't penetrate her.
Wow.
They tried.
Animals.
And when we grabbed her, took her to the hospital, my team, we cried, but as we say in Spanish, de coraje. We were so angry. And my team, hey, tomorrow, let's start. Because now we can get aggressive in looking for the suspects. We're afraid they're going to kill her if we hit the wrong house. Well, the next day I get a call early in the morning. Unbeknownst to the kidnappers, she was heavily connected to politicians in Haiti, powerful politicians. So I get a call, and they said, you'll never guess, one of the locations we were going to hit. At about 4 in the morning, 3 or 4 SUVs with no markings pulled up, stormed the house, guys they looked like military or cops, BDUs with rifles. And somebody said they looked like they were well trained. They yanked everybody out of the house, and they put everybody on their knees. I think it was 5 of them. They separated them, and they shot 5 guys in the back of the head and left everybody else. And that was our case. Those are our suspects. So I was like, oh, well, nobody ever investigated it. Nobody cared. It's Haiti. They don't investigate homicides there, maybe 5%. And somebody to the victim had information, good intel, and we think somebody, one of the locals, we think leaked information about that house. We were going to hit that house in the morning, and they just executed the guy. So, God bless the third world. That's what I say.
Exactly. Roger, how much time did these scumbags get? And are they still in prison? Do we know?
So one of them got life with parole. The other one got 10 years, 10 years, 4 months. So he's out. That was Osborne. They got that.
Is that the African American kid, or half African American, half
Yes,
white?
he was the half. Hey, go sit down. So I have my mom's dog, my best friend. She's mad because I'm not paying no attention to her. So
what about the girl? What about the girl?
The charges were dropped against the girl. She went to a prelim, and then they dropped the charges. So I don't remember if the judge said there wasn't enough during the prelim. I don't remember what occurred there, but she wasn't charged. But the funny part is, I was talking with one of the detectives, and I should have recontacted her and found out about it. And the kid that got released from prison, he got into a pursuit. Maybe it was before my birthday, so it was about 6 months ago, and he ended up dying with San Diego PD.
This is 6 months ago.
So he's gone. Yeah, about 6 months ago, 7 months ago.
Wow.
So that kid's gone. Justice was served, and it might have been an officer involved shooting also. I was at my birthday party when she was telling me, and it was kind of like, I'm a little fuzzy right now.
Yeah. Well, guys, we're going to show the video, and then we're going to go into the next topic.
Hey, Dave, let me say one.
Go ahead.
No, that's okay. Go ahead. Not that important. Go ahead.
Okay, here we go.
Being kidnapped, beaten, and locked in the trunk of her car for 26 hours several years ago, has died.
Sandy Vinge died February 4th. She not only lived through the harrowing ordeal, she helped authorities track down her attackers. CBS News 8's Brandon Lewis is live in El Cajon with how this brave woman is being remembered. Brandon?
As Stephen Marcella and her friends and family packed the Elks Lodge today to pay their respects. She was very active in the community even before the kidnapping and didn't let it slow her down. Among those in the audience today was the deputy who pulled over the car that she was trapped in and says they stayed in contact all these years. For a second there, I didn't think she was breathing or alive, but I mean, she was talking to Roger, one of my co-workers, and he was holding her and some other stuff, and so I was just praying that she was going to stay alive. Every time we see her, I mean, she leaves you at a better spot, in life. You're maybe feeling down and stuff. You talk to Sandy for a few minutes, and your troubles are gone. So she's a very, very sweet lady. her home by a man who was selling vacuums. He asked to use her phone, then choked her and stuffed her in the trunk of her own car for more than a day, beating her when she asked for food or water. She was eventually rescued by sheriff's deputies and underwent extensive medical treatment for her injuries. Tonight, she was remembered as a kind woman. She enjoyed working with the Elks Club. They say she wasn't defined by what happened to her. Still, she was a strong person. Vinge is credited with testifying against the men who kidnapped her. Jeffrey Nelson was sentenced to life in prison. Louise Osborne to more than 10 years, as her family says this was only one part in her long and fulfilling life.
Wow, what a beautiful woman, huh?
Yes.
Gorgeous lady. Your
Yeah.
grandmother, your best
Yeah.
friend. I mean,
You were going to say something, Roger? Go ahead. There's a picture
no,
of you and
I was
her.
going to talk about another case because Bobby he triggered a memory on a homicide. I was working a homicide because I was assigned to some gang homicides and homicide, and they took me out on a search warrant on a kidnapping, and we went to L.A. to do the search warrant. So they took me so I could write the search warrants out of L.A. and they were chopping off the victim's ear and nailing it to us, just like Van Gogh. So we ended up getting them. So it was just a reminder of how bad these people can be.
Yeah. Hey, guys, let's do a special toast, man. Salute to this beautiful woman, man. Sandy Vinge, salud. May you rest in peace. And I know
Salute,
no matter
Sandy.
what, you're in heaven today, rejoicing with our Lord. Wow. Well, what a story, Roger. What a story for you and Mark, the other deputy, that were definitely, these are legendary stories. We're definitely heroes with that.
Yeah. So there was
Bobby, what?
our sergeant, Damon Blackenbaker. He was really involved with her too. He got really close to her. He ran the whole show that night, and he did a fantastic job bringing it all together. So it was a complete team effort that night, and the team all came together perfect.
And guys, right now, Bobby, before you come on, I want to give Gilbert Martinez, all the way from Arizona, Reservation Corrections. Thank you, brother, for watching us. And we got our brother, man, watching us. Big Din to Janice watching us all the way from Thailand. Thank you, brother. And we got our other brother, Big BJ Juarez. I believe he's working. That's why he's watching us. I believe on his phone. I think you're a trucker, brother, but thank you once again, Big BJ. You're always with us. Mil gracias. Bobby, it's all yours, brother.
Well, Roger, thanks for joining us. Get to meet you, if you can hear me. If we could go into some of the SIDS deaths that you ran into during your career. I was very fortunate. I never dealt with any of them. So, but I know a lot of guys that did. Those are horrible. So you could talk to us about some of the SID death cases that you responded on as a cop.
So in my career, I went to 13 SID deaths.
Oh.
And those 13 to this day haunted me. Well, they don't haunt me no more. I mean, I got some real good therapy. I got rid of the demons. But for the longest time, the first SID's death was a little Arab boy out in Rancho San Diego. And you get to a case like this, and what are you going to do? You got a grieving mother there. You got a grieving father there. I performed CPR on every single one of them that I came to, and just prayed that the fire department would get there so I could hand them off and I could get outside and go cry or go do whatever I had to do. Of course, then I had to go back and conduct an investigation, because I was responsible for the paper. There was the last one I can remember. I was working out of Lakeside, little Hispanic family, and there was about 6 of us on scene. And Alex Navarro actually was the first one there. So he was actually the first one to do the CPR on the kid. And then we grabbed him and we ran out to the ambulance, and they transported, and it didn't prevail. So the 13, only one of them wasn't a SIDS death. It was a 6-year-old girl. Her father was a San Diego police officer, and I got the call of a non-breather. The father couldn't do CPR. So I arrived, and the father's going crazy, and oh my God, I'll never forget. So I immediately started CPR on the child, and this one actually, they transported her, and she survived 3 days. They told me later that she had just got released from the hospital, and she had a stent removed from the back of her neck. I don't know what the stent was for or whatever, but she looked like she was an infant. She looked like she was about a year old when she was really 6 years old. But that father, being a police officer, knows CPR, he knows everything else, but he was so distraught that he couldn't do it. And you know what? I was just thankful that God put me in the position to help him as much as I could. I mean, he got to spend another 2 days with his baby, but of course, unfortunately, the Lord wanted her, so the Lord took her. And then there was
go ahead, Roger. Go ahead.
no, I was just gonna say, and there's many more in between there. You know, after about the fifth one, I remember getting a call in Spring Valley, and I could hear the ambulance coming, and I'm already shaking. I'm already like, oh, well, I don't want to go through this again. I don't want to have to deal with these parents. And I could hear the ambulance coming. I drove around the block, and I to this day it still weighs on my heart heavy that I drove around the block and I didn't go straight to the scene. I still beat the ambulance there. I still did the CPR. I mean, the ambulance was like 30 seconds behind me, so I started the CPR. And this one was a heavy set mother. She probably weighed 350 pounds. She was sleeping with the child and rode over and smothered the child. So that was a sad one too. I mean, they were all sad. Every single one of them was sad. And like I said, they haunted me, man. I'd have dreams. I'd see these babies' faces in the middle of the night when I was sleeping. I went through all the anger, all the frustration. Why me? First of all, why them? It wasn't me. I mean, I got to live. They didn't get to see anything. And so at first it was like, why me? Why do I have to go? And then it was like, no, I need to go. Why them? Why these poor children? Why don't they get to survive? I have no problems. I get to go and do my best to try to revive them, bring them back. And, you know, it was what it was. So I had a lot of demons. I was angry. I was angry all the time. I mean, and my sergeants, my lieutenants, they'll tell you if I wasn't a good cop, I would have been fired for the things that I said to my supervisors. And you know, I look back on it, I was an angry person. I was a very angry person. And it came from my house, my parents' house. We talked about it before. I think I'm not on this show. My parents' house, when it got shot up in the drive-by, when I was working at the San Diego Regional Gang Task Force, and I was left out to dry with the county. There were some laws on the books, and they didn't support it at all. So I became a very bitter and very angry person. You know, sometimes I'd show up to briefing with an aluminum hat on my head just to piss off the supervisors. And so finally, one of them said, "Hey, you know what? We're going to send you for a fitness for duty." I said, "A fitness for duty for what?" He goes, "No, you got a problem. You're angry and stuff." And I had made a statement about if something happened to my family, I was going to revenge it. And the sergeant didn't like that. So they sent me to see Dr. Mantell, actually, he was the San Diego PD psychiatrist.
Yeah, he was a nut. He was a nut himself.
He was a nut.
Yes,
I know.
He was a nut.
So I'm sitting there talking to Dr. Mantell. You know, we're talking about guns and everything else, and he was a gun fanatic. And then he goes, "Well, Roger, why'd you say this? Why'd you say if something happened to your family, you would revenge it?" I said, "Because I would. I mean, there's no question about it." He goes, "Okay, that's good enough for me." He goes, "But let me tell you something. If something happened to my family, I would revenge it too." He goes, "But this is the day and the age of the post office. There was a lot of postal shootings back at that time." He goes, "The day and age of the post office." He goes, you can't say your thoughts out loud." He goes, "You can go back to work." So I sent him back to work. So I was fortunate. So, but I didn't take no crap from supervisors, and the supervisors, you know, the good ones, they liked me and they knew I was a good cop, and that's why they left me alone and just let me, if I had something to say in briefing or something, they let me say it and get it off my chest, and then we'd move on. So,
yeah, go ahead, Doug.
No, I was just smiling. It was just we've all either been there or we've worked with guys that have had that kind of stuff. So,
yeah.
And usually they're the good cops because they don't like the nonsense that's going on, and they call them out.
Yeah, I had a lieutenant one time. Me and him we butted heads every time, and we get into this foot pursuit out in Santee Lakeside, and the son ended up getting tasered, and they pull him out, and the mom's all in everybody's face. And I go over and I start talking to her. Well, the lieutenant walks up behind me, and I'm looking at him. I said, "Well, you know what? She wants to file complaints and stuff. Why don't you take over?" He goes, "No, you're doing a fine job. You handle it." And he stood back there and listened. And then when we got back to the station, he actually shook my hand and said, you know what? I never realized that you could bring the public down the way that you do. I always thought that you were out here, getting them fired up and everything else, but you also have the ability to bring them back down to earth. That lady never went in and filed a complaint or anything else. So he was very happy. So, and we didn't get along. We get along now. He was at my birthday party. We go out, drink and stuff. He's a good guy. It's just that I had that attitude that, I lived with anger for so long. After my house was shot up in the drive-by, I ended up getting into an officer-involved shooting. I ended up shooting a guy in Lemon Grove at midnight. A guy pulled a gun on me. It turned out to be a BB gun, but don't take a BB gun to a gunfight. So I dropped him. I ended up going into a raging river and saving a lady's life. She was down in Spring Valley by the Spring Valley swamp meet. She drove her car into a little, about 70-year-old lady. When I got there, she was up to her neck in water, holding onto the steering wheel. All I could see was hands and eyes. So I walked out about 50 yards. It got up to about my armpits, and I broke out her window and grabbed her out. And she kept getting her purse. I said, "We're not getting your purse." Grabbed her, pulled her out. As soon as I pulled her out, the pressure from the water, the broken window, turned the car and swept it away. And so I got her back into safety. I ended up getting a life-saving award for that. I fought a guy with a live hand grenade. One of my buddies started a little pursuit down in Spring Valley by the Big T, and he didn't put it out in the air, but then he asked for a cover unit, and I could tell in his voice because he's one of those guys that really never called for cover. So I was only a few blocks away, so I hauled butt over to him, and he goes, "Hey, Roger, this guy's got a hand grenade on him." I go, "What?" He goes, "You know how we always joke and we say, you have any hand grenades, machine guns, or anything that's going to hurt me?" He goes, when I asked him, he goes, "Yeah, I got a hand grenade in my pocket." He goes, I pat him down and I fill a hand grenade. So we put the guy in handcuffs, and immediately he starts calling for Allah, and he was going to take us all out and everything else. The guy had a live hand grenade. We fought the guy for 45 minutes waiting for bomb and arson to get there. We had him handcuffed. We cleared the apartment complex. We wouldn't let any other deputies come in. It was just me and this other deputy.
And he's fighting you, Roger?
Yeah, he's jumping up and down, trying to set it off. Well, when bomb and arson got there, 2 days later, we get a letter that it was a live hand grenade, and he had a suicide taped it so that he could just pull the tape and let it go. There was the pin, nothing. It was going to blow, and confirmed that it was a live hand grenade. Well, the guy had a machine gun in the car also. I say machine gun. I think it was a Tech 9 fully loaded, and then he had all kinds of weed and cocaine. It was a Rastafarian type of guy, so he was calling out.
The only thing missing was bazooka.
Yeah, the only thing I was missing was the bazooka. Exactly. So from that point on, when I asked if they had hand grenades or machine guns on them, they were going to hurt me. I was serious when I asked them because I had dealt with it. So we ended up getting the Medal of Valor from the department for that one. But like the lady, that my point was with the lady, when I went out in the water and the water was just swirling and raining and pushing hard. I mean, everybody saw the hurricanes in Florida. David, thank God you're still here with us. I'm glad you survived it. That's how it was. And I'd already made up my mind. If I got swept away, I knew where I was going. I had looked at it. I could read the water. I'm an avid fisherman. I was an avid swimmer. I knew where I was going to go, and I knew I was going to get caught in a whirlpool. It was probably going to take me down, but I was going to be able to push out and get through it and just go back down the river a little bit more. Thank God I did. But then the next day I started thinking, well, I could have died that night. I actually could have died that night. And then when I went 1080 service, the dispatcher gets me on the radio. She goes, "Hey, Roger." And I go, "Yeah, go ahead." She goes, "Are you going to do anything stupid tonight?" Just like that. That's what she said to me on the radio. I said, "Well, and this is on our normal frequencies. I mean, on the sheriff's department, we talk like that to each other. We had rules, but we didn't abide by them." And I said, if I need to, I will. And that's how it ended. She goes, "Well, you scared me." I said, "I scared myself, but I did what I had to do." And then I started thinking about it. You know what? I could have died. The guy with the hand grenade, I started thinking about it. I could have died, but I could have died just crossing the street too. Yeah. But all this stuff started building up. The shooting, the children, everything. And then I ended up getting PTSD. And I'm sure I had it, from the first kid. It just never festered as much as it did.
I think in my 28 or 27 year career with San Diego PD, I think I responded. I remember my first SIDS call, and my first SIDS call, it was my first. I was still in the academy, and I had Brian Sismonic as my
Yeah.
training officer in Southeast San Diego, and it was like probably my second or third radio call. We're working day shift, 8 o'clock in the morning. We're working Southeast San Diego, all black gangsters everywhere. 8 o'clock in the morning, call of a baby not breathing. And Sismonic was driving, but he had me with the map book, and I was lost for that map book, especially in Southeast. First or second radio call, we responded. I remember we got to the house, and I mean, I'll never forget. There's this beautiful blonde woman holding a baby or something in her hands, and she has a red sarape. She has it covered in a red sarape, and she's yelling in the middle of the street. It's 8 o'clock in the morning, Sunday morning. Nobody is out. She's yelling in the middle of the street hysterically, wake up my baby, wake up my baby. And back then, that's when they started teaching us contact and cover. So he stops the car. He goes, David, your contact, I'm covering you. I get out of the car. As soon as I get out of the car, she runs toward me. And I was a recruit. I was still in the academy. That was my first phase out. She gives me the baby. And when she gives me the baby, dude, I didn't know nothing about SIDS. You know what I mean? And when I grabbed that baby, I'll never forget, that baby was as hard as a rock. Rigor mortis had set in. And once again, I touched the baby. I have it in my arms. And by now, she's slapping me. She's slapping me. She's saying, wake up my baby, wake up my baby. And I'm looking at him. He finally gets out of the car, comes and grabs her and calms her down. He goes, take the baby inside the house. And I take the baby. The baby, I mean, it was rigor mortis. It had set in, right? And the baby had died. But I'll never forget, that was my day shift. For whatever reason, I think I got a late arrest or something. I didn't get home till about 8 or 9 o'clock at night that night. So I get home, and my son, little David, he was a year old. And I remember walking into the house, and I'm in phase training, walking into the house, and he's in his little blue room in his little carriage, little bed. And I remember going up to him, and my ex-wife, I didn't even greet her or my two daughters. I went straight in there. I picked up my son, and I just held him in my arms, and I cried. I wept. I was just weeping. And my wife comes in at the time. She comes in. She goes, why are you crying? And I couldn't stop crying. I got him, and I took him to the bedroom, and he slept between us that night. And I will never forget that. And maybe after that, maybe one more, but not 13. Not 13 SIDS death. Bobby, how many did you respond? Do you recall how many? Me, maybe 2, and that was it. You know,
none, 0. I don't know. I never responded to one. And then drownings. I grew up in an inner city. There was no swimming pools. I mean, so I had no. But what I think of a lot, the thing that really sticks in my mind, going to a homicide scene as a gang cop, and when the family starts showing up, and you hear the screaming and the wailing. And it's like you just want to stop, because you could have a turd on the ground, but you still hurt for the family. You know, some guy that shot somebody last week's been shot this week, and it still hurts. You know, and the family will show up, and you could have your back turned to as they're showing up, and that wailing is the same over and over. And you go home and you can't undo that out of your mind. But I was fortunate. No SIDS, no drownings, just homicide scenes.
What about you, Doug?
More
homicide scenes. Yeah. What about you, Doug? Do you remember your SIDS? Did you respond to any in your 30-plus year career?
Yeah, I never responded to a single SIDS. The worst things that happened to me were I had two people basically die in my arms. One was a shooting victim and one was a stabbing victim, where there was absolutely nothing you could do for them except, try to comfort them. And, and you could hear the sirens in the background, and it's police sirens. It's because, there's a difference between police and fire and ambulances. We know that. I can hear police sirens coming because I've called it in, but fire, God bless fire guys and paramedics and those, but when you're responding to shootings and stabbings, they don't come in until you tell them it's code 4 to come in. So they were chaotic scenes, so we had to make sure we had the scene controlled before we could even get the fire guys in there. But those were the hardest ones there because these folks knew they were dying, and there was nothing you could do for them. Not a thing you could do for them, except.
But we always tried. We always tried, no matter what.
We always tried, right?
No matter who it was, what it was, we always tried. I remember I went to an adult, big lady. When I went into the house, she's sprawled out on the living room floor. Her legs are like this. I mean, they're huge, wrapped in bandages, and she's not breathing, and her heart's not beating. There's no pulse. So I started CPR, but I didn't breathe for some reason. I don't know why. It was just when they came out with the new rules where you don't have to breathe. All you got to do is chest compressions. So I'm there probably 5 minutes before the fire department arrives. The fire department walks in. They go, "We were just here 3 days ago," and they tell me, she's got oh my God, what was it? I had the name of it a minute ago. Anyhow, she had one of those staph infections, but something else. It was another thing besides the staph infection. And they said, immediately go to the ambulance, wash your face, wash your hands. If you can get out of those clothes, get some new clothes and get in those clothes. They go, she's very highly contagious. But that stuff never crosses your mind. I mean, for me, it didn't anyway. We had masks and everything else. I never wore a mask to do CPR. I never put it on. I did screw one of my partners one time. We arrived at the same time at about an 18-year-old, 19-year-old, and she probably overdosed. And I beat him in the house, in the room, and the mother was a retired deputy sheriff, and I didn't know her, but my partner did. And I look at the daughter laying in bed, and I could see she was foaming from the mouth. So we yank her off the bed. And I tell him, "Hey, Dan, I don't know how to do the breath, but I can do the compression. So you do the breath." His first breath into the poor girl, he came out with a mouthful of chunks of vomit, and he'll never forget me for that. So it was pretty sad, but she was already dead. She was gone. She had laid in bed all night like that. So,
brother, this is a great comment, man, from a Red Pill cop in the Philippines, Chris Hastings. I mean, so true. If things like this don't affect you, you have no soul.
Exactly. Absolutely.
No soul. And you know what? We're gonna not end it, but this right here from Ruben Nava, 30+ year veteran from the Los Angeles Sheriff's Department, who's now a chaplain in the same command, East LA, where he worked as a sergeant, says, "Dang, you were a lucky man, Roger." Here's from a man who's a man of God, who's telling you, Roger, I never had the 13. None of us here, 2 of us out of the 4 of us, I had 2 maybe, but the one I'll never forget, Bobby didn't have the SIDS death. Doug didn't have the SIDS death, but you had 13. And here's a man of God telling you, you were a lucky man, Roger, because God gave you that opportunity to be there, for the family, for that baby, and for yourself, Yeah. Thank you, Ruben, for this beautiful comment. And
thank you, Ruben. I appreciate it. And you know what? I wasn't lucky. I was a very blessed man. God did put me in the right spot at the right time. Like I said, at first, I didn't understand it, and I was angry, and I didn't understand why me. But it wasn't me. It was those poor kids that were dying. It took me a few times, 4 or 5 times to realize that this is not about me. This is about those poor kids that will never kiss their mother again, will never kiss their father again, who will never grow up to watch cartoons, have a Christmas. You know what? I had to deal with it, but guess what? I went home and I had Christmas with my kids. I had, Thanksgiving with my kids. So, it wasn't about me, but it was tough. It still was tough. I still had the dreams. I still had the mother screaming in my ears at nighttime when I was sleeping. I'd wake up, it was, but I don't have those demons no more. I'm over them. I don't have those dreams no more. I still think about them, but I think of it as a positive. It was God taking his children back. He's going to take them, and he took them. He's going to take us all one day. We don't know when. We have no idea, but he's going to take us one day. And when he does, we're gone. We're going to go live an eternal life.
Go ahead, Bobby.
Yeah, one of my best friends I grew up with. We were buddies since I was 12. I got married about the same time he did. We had kids about the same time. My son grew up with his daughter. My son dated his daughter when he first got in the Marine Corps. They went different ways. His daughter had a baby and was a SIDS death. Probably 2-3 months old, and the baby just turned over and suffocated. And my friend has never been the same. I mean, but he's not close to God. You know, he got angry at God, and I tried talking to him. He got angry at me. In his time, I pray that he will have peace. He's just never been the same. His daughter has had 2 other kids since, but that was his first. That was his grandson, and I just can't imagine the pain as a parent. But he did say that the first officer on the scene was very good. You know, he said he cried. He goes, the first officer at the scene cried with us. That's what he said. The baby was dead, but they tried. He tried, but the baby was dead. He goes, I knew the baby was dead.
You know, go ahead, Roger.
I was going to say, you know, I talked about that San Diego police officer that couldn't do CPR on his own child. I don't know if I could do CPR on one of my kids. I probably would freak out. I know a couple times my kids cut themselves and chin bleeding and everything else. Thank God for my wife at the time, because she took them to the emergency room because I couldn't stand to see them bleed. But I could go to anybody else's house and wrap them up and put Band-Aids on them like I was a doctor. It didn't bother me. But seeing my own kids bleed, like I said, I probably couldn't have done CPR on them. So thank God that I was blessed and they were all healthy, and they're still healthy to this day, you know.
And you know, guys, I was that guy that I never believed that cops would ever or had ever suffered from PTSD. For whatever reason, maybe it was my ignorance. I always thought that the only people that suffer from PTSD were combat veterans, not just military, trigger pullers, combat veterans that were there, that were involved in the war. And I always thought that, and it was after I retired that, because everything that you're talking about, Roger, everything that Bobby, you talked about, Doug, you talked about, we basically compartmentalized it. We had to compartmentalize it, because if we couldn't, we would have gone crazy. We couldn't respond to the next call.
And you would have been considered weak.
Yes. Yeah. Well, yes. But not only weak, how can you go after seeing a guy blow his head off to the next radio call? You had to compartmentalize. That's why we have the sense of humor, that we laugh about everything.
All the jokes.
I remember responding to a radio call right there on I-5. We got there right before CHP. There's a head rolling. There's a head that rolled, by the car, a headless body. A woman was pregnant and lost a baby. And we get there, and one of the guys goes, "Hey, anybody want to go bowling?" And we all start laughing. But you know why? Because that's how we dealt with the trauma. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. But it was after I retired. It was 6 years after I retired that the dreams started coming, that the anger started coming, that the solitude. You know what I mean? But Roger, it sounds like you, after those 13, it kept going. That anger started coming out. But Roger, so we know that happened. So tell us about your therapy. What have you done to work on it, and what are you doing today? And as you're talking, I'm going to show some pictures, because I know that this is very dear to you, and this helped you making plaques. Can you tell us about that?
So when I was in high school, I always liked working with wood, and so I decided I was going to start working with wood again, and I started doing some woodworking. And when I started out carving them by hand, and it was taking me forever. And I had been in a very serious car accident on duty, and that's why I retired. And so I wasn't supposed to sit any place, at long times. But I'd find myself sitting in a chair for 8 hours doing these wood carvings by hand. And I said, you know what? I got to find an easier and better way. So I bought a machine, and so these are cut on a machine. Not the backgrounds, just the badges and the dogs and stuff are cut on a machine. And so I started doing woodworking. I started doing making badges and selling them. And I was doing actually halfway decent. It was a hobby, but I was selling some pretty good ones until COVID hit. When COVID hit, the market died, and now I just try to do like the shadow figures, the black guy there, or the shadow figure with the serviceman with the rifle and the boots. There it is at the bottom there. The other one with the dog. So they're all painted black. They're supposed to be shadows. It's Midwest type of thing. That's a police officer, and then I do Halloween stuff and Thanksgiving stuff, Easter stuff. So that became my therapy. The Christmas, my Christmas stuff. I can't sell them though because of course they're all trademarked, and so I build them and give them away or get the price of my wood back so I can do something else.
And if anybody's interested, please write this number down, 619-733-8853. Roger now has his own 2-bedroom little house in Chula Vista, and now he's picking this hobby back up again. And another one of his greatest hobbies, follow him on Facebook. You'll see every day he's posting pictures of a meal that he cooks. I'll tell you, I live vicariously through him, Bobby and Doug. If I lived with him, I'd weigh 500 pounds instead of 300 pounds. This guy cooks up some great meals. Tell us about that, Roger.
So I like to cook. You know, that came from my mother. My mother was a great cook. Well, we're going to see my boat first. That's my fishing hobby. So I like to fish. I like to lobster hunt. That's my boat at nighttime. We're out on San Diego Bay doing some lobstering there. We're going to talk about lobster. We're going to talk about cooking, Dave.
So let's go cooking, and then let's go with the lobster. And guys, if you're ever in San Diego, Bobby, he will take you out on that boat, on that bay, and you'll see every kind of fish that you've thought about, especially dolphins. He'll take you. Doug, next time you're in San Diego, take him up. He'll take you on his boat. He's going to take me in November. He doesn't know yet, but he is.
The dolphins are really cool. They come out of the Point Loma area from the Navy base. That's the dolphins that they train to do the demolition and stuff. So when we're out there at nighttime, we're always seeing them swimming and stuff like that. It's really, really cool. San Diego Bay at nighttime is a beautiful place. And because we're a military city, you see so much with the military. I mean, I was in the bay out towards the Point Loma, and all these military boats, police boats started coming at us, and they start pushing us, saying, hey, get to the bank, get to the bank, get to the bank, get to the bank. And we're saying every time we go to the bank, you chase us away because it's North Island. Every time we go to the bank, you chase us away. You're going to arrest us or whatever. No, you need to go to the bank right now. And then we look over, and there's a submarine coming in into the bay because you know there's a sub base here in San Diego. So you get to see a lot of stuff, all the airplanes, helicopters, and stuff. So, but back to the cooking. So I do a lot of. My mother was a cook, not like a chef, but she cooked for 6 kids, and we had gigantic Thanksgivings, Easters, Christmases. I mean, we had everything. We were a poor family, but my mom could make the best of everything. And she'd start saving 3 months before Thanksgiving so we could have a Thanksgiving feast for Christmas, you know. So I like to cook Mexican food is because that's kind of what I think I am sometimes. I'm Mexican by injection, but I'm the injector. I like to cook barbacoas, birrias. I cook carnitas, enchiladas, but you know, barbecue a lot of steaks. I sent Dave some pictures. I guess he doesn't have the pictures of the food, but I do pretty good. I get compliments. Sometimes I get hired to do birthday parties, weddings for 100, 150 people on my barbacoa and my carnitas, and I just enjoy doing it. You know, it's one of my PTSD reliefs. So I got the 4 reliefs for my PTSD. They're called hobbies. It's fishing, woodworking, singing. I do karaoke shows, and I do what did I miss, Dave? Cooking.
You did
so cooking, singing,
fishing,
woodworking, and fishing. I make sure I do one of those events at least twice a week. It's more cooking. You can see my fat ass has gained a few pounds, but that's how I deal with my PTSD, and it works. Those 4 hobbies, I don't have time to think about the demons that were following me and chasing me, and I haven't thought about them for many, many years now.
Roger, what advice do you give to an officer right now or somebody, EMT? I mean, we all suffer one way or another from PTSD. What advice do you give to that person watching the show today or tomorrow?
Reach out. You can't do it by yourself at the beginning. You need to talk to somebody. You need to, I don't care if it's your best friend or whatever. You need to talk to somebody. And it just depends on how deep it's going. You need to get God in your life. In my opinion, you know, you have to become spiritual because he's the one that's going to guide you. You need to find hobbies. Keep yourself busy. Don't let your mind think about these things. When you go to bed at night, turn off the TV, turn off the phones. You can turn them off a half hour before and you'll go to sleep. Don't leave the TVs on. Don't leave. So I preach this, but I leave a police scanner on at nighttime when I go to sleep. And I wake up in the morning and I can tell you everything that happened in Southeast San Diego. I can tell you everything that happened in Mid-City, Southern, because subconsciously I still have a radio ear and I still hear, but I slept all night. But if I leave the TV on, if I'm playing on the phone, I never fall asleep. So I go to bed at night. I sleep with thinking about positive thoughts, positive, what my day is going to be tomorrow, what good things I did today, what piece of woodworking I could do, what am I going to cook tomorrow, what song do I want to learn how to sing next, just that kind of stuff. But the most important thing is get help. You're not weak. Just because, cry. If you have to cry, cry.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with crying. Believe me, those tears let out a lot of sadness and pain. Exactly. Pain. Thank you, Dave. That was the word I was looking for. And you're not a weak person just because you cry. I mean, I don't care. We have seen so much devastation in your life. And I just touched on a few things, man. I can tell you about the mother and son that I used to go to family fights at their house all the time. I'm driving by their house and the son's standing out in the driveway yelling at his mom. Next thing I know, he's shooting her and then he shoots himself. I mean, we see this stuff. This is stuff that we see, and it builds up. It's demons. It's the dirtiest things in life. And we see those, but you have to reach out and get help. We make jokes about it. I know when I'm on you guys' show, when I'm watching your show, I'm always writing something stupid because I'm trying to be funny because I think I'm funny. I'm like the stupidest guy in the world because I'm not funny, but I think I'm damn funny. I can never get Dave to laugh, but I think I'm funny. So I'll write stupid stuff, and say stupid stuff because that's a relief factor. Right. It's not. It's not a sin or it's not hurtful to try to reach out and get help, so that's the main thing.
Bobby, any last words for Roger?
No, it's just a pleasure. I'm glad. Great. A lot of times we deal with a lot of issues, things we've seen during our career, and sometimes you think you're unique. You're not. We all saw it. We all had to deal with it. We all dealt with it a different way.
Right.
And early in my career, I was a rookie. I didn't have money for alcohol. I'd just go home and I would run. I would get my gear on, go work out, run, tire myself out. Thank God I just didn't have the money to drink it away. Years later, you start making more money, start drinking a little bit more than I should have. But many times, I think no matter what, overseas, working in the PD, I remember praying myself to sleep, praying and falling asleep mid-prayer, and also I'd be out. So I thought that was, you mentioned you have to lean on God, because if you try to do it alone, you're not going to make it. You have to lean on God.
That's absolutely true.
Absolutely.
Big Doug.
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, the hardest part was after you retire is when a lot of things started coming up, because you don't have the banter that you used to go into work with every day in the locker room before you get ready for work. You got all your buddies you banter back and forth with. You've got, people you've been working with for years, and all of a sudden you're retired and you don't have that daily interaction anymore. And that was a release. That daily interaction was a release. So you like Roger
absolutely
said, you internalize all that, and then it just starts to fester. And I'm gonna give Chris his props again when he puts out there all the time about his buddy checks. Do your buddy checks.
That's right.
Because
thank you, Chris.
People need to hear from you. First they need to hear that you're okay, and you need to hear that they're okay. Because we're not, we don't have that daily interaction anymore like we used to, and that was a big part of how you got through things.
Roger, once again, brother, I know that tonight you're probably going to have a hard night because we took you back in time to those 13 incidents. We took you because last time you were on my show on Sheepdog Assist, I remember that we both had a hard time. because I mean we shared these moments together. But thank you from the bottom of my heart. I know that those words. If right now we have 60 people watching, by the end of next week you're gonna have 3,000 people watching, and your life story, your heroic acts, your legendary stories, your pain and suffering is going to be heard by many people, but your solutions is going to be heard by more.
That's the more important part. Anything you took away is the solutions. Don't listen to the stories. Listen to the solutions.
That's right. And guys, you know what? Go ahead, Roger. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, like Bobby said, we're not unique. We've all been through it. Every one of us, one way or another. And the stories pretty much are the same. Just the faces are changed. The places are changed. But the solution is what I said. The different ways to solve it.
That's right. And you know what? The bottom line is seek Jesus Christ. Seek God.
Amen.
And you know what? Get a hobby, work out, find purpose in life. But guys, next week on the Gray Line, next Tuesday at 6:00, I'm going to be sharing with some videos and my experience, my wife and I's experience during Hurricane Helena, during and after. And Doug, if you can, I'd like for you to join me because I know that you went through a lot over there in Tennessee. You got the after effects of us. So hopefully you're in town that you could join us. But next week we have that. And Bobby, tell us about next Wednesday, who our guest is and what he's going to be talking about.
Next Wednesday, we're going to have retired Phoenix Police Detective Steve Arona. Steve is the most tenured homicide detective in the history of Phoenix PD. He went from 1992 to, I think, 2021 in the Phoenix Homicide Unit. That's a lot of dead bodies, but he's going to specifically talk to us about a serial murder case, another case that really touched him, really affected him, and also he investigated a homicide of a Phoenix police officer and fellow cop that worked the same precinct with him. So I'm excited to have him here. He'll be on next Wednesday. Steve Arona.
I can't wait to meet him. I've heard so much about him through you, Bobby. But guys, with that said, any last words? We're going to end the show. Roger talked about being on karaoke. We're going to end the show with him last night live at, where is it that you're at the first Tuesday of the month?
The Elks Club in Chula Vista. I do the host for the karaoke show there. And you know what? 20 years ago, I could sing a lot better than I could sing now. So it is what it is. I'm happy. Thank you, God.
Yeah, go ahead, Bobby.
A shout out to our brother Saul Ayala.
Yes.
Friday, he got sick, ended up going to the hospital, having some shortness of breath, then started feeling some chest pains. So he went into the hospital, they put in a stent, and he's been released yesterday. So it's good. But just prayers to Saul, our brother. And earlier in the week, even though he did that earlier in the week, he's doing some work still, made a massive fentanyl seizure. So he's still in there in the fight, but he's recovering. And if he's listening, we're all praying for him. And he's home. He's fine. He's home. Yeah. And full recovery is expected. So I just wanted to prayers to Saul Ayala.
Without a doubt. Big Doug, last words?
I got nothing today. I'll fill everybody in on how it goes up in Nova Scotia next week.
Doug, prayers for you and your wife. Safe travels, brother. And what a beautiful memory to have that you're taking your mom's ashes to where she wants to be scattered. That is so beautiful. Thank you. That's outstanding. Big Roger, any last words?
Thank you, everybody, for watching. I appreciate it. Thank you guys for having me on the show. It's my favorite thing to go to on Wednesday night. You know, Tuesday and Wednesday, nothing better. So thank you guys. I appreciate letting my story be out.
Thank you, brother. And don't forget, trust the process and trust the author. And like Chris Kilby, our brother, says, you know what? Do the buddy checks. Call somebody this week that you haven't talked to in a long time and just check on their welfare. Thank you. God bless you. And here's a man of the hour. Here we go.
Yeah. There's a man who leads a life of danger. Everyone he meets, he stays a stranger. With every move he makes, another chance he takes. taking away your name. Beware of pretty faces that you find. A pretty face can hide an evil mind. Be careful what you say, give yourself away. Odds are you won't live to see tomorrow. Secret agent man, secret agent man, giving you a number, then taking away your name. Alright, do it, girls, do it, girls. Taking away your name. Swinging on the Riviera one day, lying in a Bombay alley next day. Let the wrong word slip, kissing persuasive lips. The odds are you won't live to see tomorrow. Secret agent man, secret agent man, giving you a number, then taking away your name. All right, finish it up, girls, finish it up.